He walked in with broken English and a tattered suitcase. And the staff? They couldn't stop laughing behind his back. But when it mocked him one last time, he pulled out something that no one saw coming. His real identity, the CEO of the entire company. And what happened next? Let's just say they'll never forget the day their cruelty backfired. Welcome to Stories by Xavier. Let's uncover what really happened. A battered suitcase thunked onto the linoleum floor as he stepped into the cafe. The faded name tag, Raj, pinned crookedly to his threadbare jacket. His accent cracked, words stumbling like loose bricks as he greeted the barista. Morning. Coffee, please. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh halos around him. He kept his gaze low, shifting from cracked tile to scuffed wheels of his suitcase, careful not to draw attention. The other employees moved past him with barely concealed smirks. A young woman with pastel-dyed hair exchanged glances with a tall cashier, her lips curling into a whisper. He recognized the type, sneers masquerading as curiosity, a silent jury sizing up the newcomer. His heart thumped behind his ribs, but outwardly he was trembling, just another immigrant hopeful, desperate for work. He edged to the counter, offering the few crumpled bills he possessed. A regular coffee, he mumbled, voice brittle. The barista tapped his polished nails against the register, slowly, deliberately. Then she rang it up, flipped the coffee machine lever, and slid the steaming cup toward him with a look that said she expected it back any moment. He thanked her, nodding fervently, cupped the cardboard sleeve between anxious fingers, and retreated to a corner table. Settling in, he fumbled with his phone to glance at the hidden earpiece. A soft click assured him HQ was watching. Undercover in his own company, he breathed in the rich aroma of roasted beans as if it were his first. He studied the layout, the cramped kitchen door, the narrow aisle where staff flitted between orders, the tiny stage they used for mock team huddles. Each detail was a clue, a piece of a puzzle he'd built this empire from. Yet completing the picture meant wearing this borrowed skin, being underestimated, mocked, an indignity he'd endure. As the morning rush began, he watched a barista flip her hair just to shove a patron aside. He noted the cashier's exaggerated patience with a picky customer, fingers flicking at the till like tuning a piano. All of it would be recorded, cataloged, and eventually corrected. But for now, he was merely Raj, newcomer with broken English, clutching his coffee and the weight of a secret power he hadn't yet revealed. He watched from his corner seat as the morning haze eased in a steady bustle. The cafe's chrome counters and scuffed stools looked impossibly plain compared to the gleaming headquarters he knew so well. A bell tinkled whenever the door opened, summoning another pair of yawning customers who seemed to expect little more than halfway warm drinks and bored smiles. The menus overhead, hand-lettered in uneven chalk, offered special lattes and acidic house blends, all served beneath flickering fluorescent panels. He observed the staff's practiced routine. The barista behind the steam wand would twist her wrist just so, producing a perfect Rosetta pattern in a cappuccino, then slide it across the counter with mechanical precision. The cashier of the register, hands hidden beneath long sleeves despite the cafe's tropical interior, scanned each item as though performing a rote incantation, eyes never lifting to meet the customers. A woman in a turquoise uniform passed by carrying a tray of half-empty glasses. She swerved to avoid him, nearly spilling water onto his table, then shot a quick, disdainful look before straightening her posture and striding away like she'd never almost drenched him. He noted the ease with which they ignored him, as though he were a ghost in their daily film. It stung, but it was exactly what he needed. A steady stream of faces drifted through the cafe, tired parents loading sugar into restless children, commuters clutching smartphones and coffee cups as if they were lifelines, tourists carefully photographing the menu board. None of them paid him more than a fleeting glance. The door chimed again, and a delivery man in a stained uniform asked for directions to the storeroom. The cashier pointed without speaking, eyes fixed on her screen. He studied the chipped porcelain mugs and the faded promotional posters for loyalty cards taped to the window, the lifeblood of an operation running on thin margins and customer loyalty hoarded like currency. Even the darkest corners of the room held secrets. A small bulletin board pinned with Employee of the Month certificates that nobody mentioned, a dusty shelf where expired pastries lingered under a cracked glass dome. As he sipped the bitter coffee, he felt the weight of reality settle around him. No high-tech support, no corporate gloss, just raw human behaviors laid bare. These first impressions would guide his next moves. In this mundane setting, the true culture of his company was hiding in plain sight, and he was poised to expose it. His fingers hovered uncertainly over the chalkboard menu as he rehearsed the words in his thick accent. Cafe mocha, he tried, voice cracking on the A. The barista raised an eyebrow, lips twitching as if she'd heard the same off-key performance 1,000 times before. You want a mocha? She asked, voice flat. He nodded, swallowing. Yes, a mocha. She punched the keys with a deliberate slowness, then set to steaming milk. As she poured, he cleared his throat and attempted the next item. Latte macchiato? The tumbled syllables tumbled out awkwardly, prompting her to pause and glance at his name tag. Latte macchiato, she corrected, voice low. He smiled sheepishly, grateful for the cue, but inside he burned with the knowledge that she thought him incompetent. Next, he sought the chai tea latte, but his accent warped it into chai tea late tea, drawing muffled giggles from the other staff gathered near the pastry case. One leaned over to another, whispering so close his ear might as well have been breached. What did he say? No idea. They laughed, brittle and silent to customers, as the barista handed him his mocha with a pointed nod. Here, he cradled the cup, the warmth seeping into his palms. Despite every misstep, each exchange was logged in his earpiece's memory. He noted the barista's impatience as she tapped her fingernails on the counter, the cashier's flippant shrug when he tried to ask about oat milk, and the muffled chuckles behind his back when he mouthed oat miake. Even the regular who greeted him with a simple, hey man, seemed stilted, eyes flicking to watch his next linguistic stumble. Yet beneath the embarrassment, he felt a thrill. Each mispronunciation was a small victory in disguise, revealing their true attitudes, disdain for anyone who didn't fit their narrow mold. Every mistake painted a clearer picture of the cafe's culture, one he could not ignore. He sipped, tasting more than chocolate. He tasted the fault lines he was determined to mend. He lingered near the counter, feigning interest in the glass display of pastries while tuning into the hushed murmurs behind him. Pink-haired Anna and lanky Derek leaned close, heads almost touching, voices so low he'd have a strain to catch every word. Their lips moved in sync, quiet, urgent. He took a slow step closer, careful not to seem intrusive, ears attuned to gossip. He still can't pronounce anything, Anna said, tone clipped. Did you see him try to say croissant? Derek snorted. I thought he was summoning a demon. Their laughter was muted, but bristled with cruelty. He pressed a hand to his chest, conjuring a stuttered cough to punctuate their performance, and Anna glanced over with a smug smirk before turning away. A fresh order beeped at the register. Derek punched the buttons with exaggerated solemnity, then glanced at Raj on the screen. New guy, he muttered. Probably here for a week. Anna rolled her eyes. He'll get weeded out. Nobody here has time for language lessons. He noted the casual contempt in their postures, the way Derek crossed his arms. Anna tapped her perfectly painted nails against the countertop. Their small gestures were their armor, mocking him to feel superior. Yet each reprimand of their own customers, too slow, too fussy, went unremarked. He jotted mental notes. Mockery disguised as banter, prejudice dressed up in casual cruelty. A silver tray clinked as a waitress carried coffee to a table. Anna's voice dropped lower. I heard the boss personally chose him for some diversity thing. Typical. Derek leaned in, eyebrows raised. Great PR move. Let's hope his English improves before we have to listen to more gibberish. His pulse sped, anger restrained beneath his calm facade. Every whispered insult confirmed what he suspected. He was the outsider, the target. But it also solidified his resolve. These whispers behind the counter would not go unanswered. He would expose their biases, rewrite their attitudes, starting quietly, one revelation at a time. He noticed it first when the busboy, Carlos, tripped over a dropped napkin and sent a tray of mugs crashing. The barista, Frances, barely paused her conversation with a regular before darting over. She knelt in a practice motion, scooping up the broken pieces and sweeping them into a cloth without a word of reprimand. Raj watched as she offered the young busboy a reassuring smile, helping him to his feet as if the accident were no more than a shared concern. Later, during the mid-afternoon lull, an elderly man shuffled to the counter with trembling hands, fumbling for coins. The cashier, Derek, whom Raj had pegged as one of the cruelest, softened his expression for a moment. He counted the man's change carefully, rounding up to cover the 50 cents he was short. The gesture was quiet, unseen by most, but Raj caught the flicker of compassion in Derek's eyes before he masked it with a grunt. In the corner, Anna paused in her lazy scroll through Instagram when a mother with a restless toddler struggled to calm her. Without drawing attention, she offered the child a paper straw and a coloring page from a stack under the register. The toddler's eyes brightened. The mother mouthed a silent thank you before Anna slipped back to her phone, as though nothing had happened. At 4 p.m., a group of delivery drivers rushed in, holding large boxes of supplies. They groaned under the weight, but no one volunteered to help, except Raj in his role as new guy. He lunged forward to grab a box alongside Patricia, the shift supervisor. She offered a surprised laugh, then a nod of gratitude, and they marched it to the storeroom together. Later, Raj learned that Patricia often quietly assisted heavy deliveries when no one was looking. Each of these moments was a fragment of truth hidden beneath the surface. Kindness here was stealthy, tucked into spare seconds and small gestures. He cataloged them all: Frances's patient grace, Derek's fleeting generosity, and his unexpected warmth, Patricia's silent strength. Knowing they were the real heroes of this cafe, he would honor their efforts, elevate their voices, and ensure these unseen acts of kindness became the new standard rather than the exception. He caught Anna's gaze across the room as a customer lingered at the counter, indecisive over the pastry selection. Her eyes narrowed, lips pressing into a thin line. Raj watched as she let out an exaggerated sigh, her shoulders slumping in theatrical boredom. When the customer finally chose, she handed over his change with a clipped "here," eyes already darting away. The man's tentative thanks floated unanswered. Behind the espresso machine, Derek leaned against the tile wall, arms crossed, watching Frances artfully swirl milk into a latte for a regular who chatted about her day. His smirk was slow, deliberate, an unspoken judgment that said he believed he could do better, though Raj suspected he wouldn't try. When Frances offered her trademark warm smile, Derek's face hardened, and he rolled his eyes, the motion so swift it was almost a twitch. During the afternoon rush, a businesswoman strode in, orders lined up on her tablet. She corrected Megan's pronunciation of cappuccino with a clipped tone, and Megan's response was visible disdain, an eyebrow lift and a stiff nod before the woman even finished speaking. Raj saw the woman's calm patience drain away as she waited for her drink, while Megan tapped the register keys so harshly that Raj worried the machine might crack. At 3:15, a regular entered with his golden retriever tied outside. Normally, Anna loved dogs, but today she passed by the window without a glance, rolling her eyes when the dog's tail bumped the glass. The customer called through the door, joking about the pooch's favorite treat, but Anna's response was a cold shrug. Raj felt the charged atmosphere settle like dust. He understood now that these hostile glares and rolling eyes were more than rudeness. They were defenses, walls built to keep anyone they deemed other at bay. Each flick of an eyelid, each subtle shift in posture, revealed an undercurrent of tension and entitlement. He sipped his coffee, noting the patterns, the alliances forming in silent contempt. These attitudes would be his next challenge, and he would dismantle them one glare at a time. When the lunch rush died down, he slipped behind the counter under the pretense of sharpening pencils. He clicked his earpiece mic, ready for feed. A tiny screen on his wrist flickered to life, displaying grainy footage from a concealed camera he'd installed days earlier. He counted the angles, the register, the pastry case, the narrow aisle. He tapped the screen. The first clip showed Anna, arms folded, whispering with Derek while Raj struggled over the menu. Her head jerked toward the camera, and she waved a hand as if shooing a fly. Next, the screen cut to Derek sliding bills into his pocket after voiding a legitimate sale. The timestamp confirmed it. Last Tuesday, 2:14 p.m. He fast-forwarded. Francis appeared, not in any plot, but in a moment of clear compassion, stopping to offer a sandwich to a homeless man waiting outside. Patricia's delivery helping hands showed up next, caught adjusting a box with a knowing smile. Even Megan's softer side emerged. She fed the cafe cat behind the storage door. The most damning footage was bracketed in the middle. Derek and Anna conspired to miscount change for Henry, backing the elderly dishwasher into a corner of suspicion. Their hushed tones carried over clearly on the mic channel. "Frame him Monday," Derek said. "Then he's out." The second camera angle captured the look of disbelief on Henry's face as he clutched his apron. Raj paused the video, the frame frozen on Anna's triumphant smirk. He breathed out slowly, mind racing. This was it. Irrefutable proof of cruelty and fraud. He scrolled through the timeline, marking clips where each quiet kindness had gone unrecognized and each sneer had gone unchecked. He pocketed the wrist display and returned the pencils to their jar. Outside the back door, Carlos bumped into him, nearly spilling his tray. Raj steadied him with a nod and a kind word, consistent with his disguise, but genuine nonetheless. Carlos offered a grateful smile before hurrying back inside. As Raj reemerged into the cafe floor, the weight of his discovery pressed behind his stern mask. He'd collected the evidence. Now he just needed the right moment and the right audience to reveal it. A shriek cut through the midday chatter as a child's cone toppled onto the floor, vanilla smear spreading across the tile like a melting cloud. The mother's cheeks flushed crimson while the little girl's tears welled, her lip quivering at the injustice of wasted sweetness. Derek, who'd been leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone, rolled his eyes and stuck out a foot to block the sticky path, as if daring the girl to step around him. Behind him, Anna let out an exaggerated sigh and clucked her tongue. "Great," she muttered loud enough for others to hear. "Another kid tantrum." She continued, wiping down the counter, her movements sharp and quick, eyes fixed on her phone screen rather than the scene. Raj stepped forward, voice cracking just enough to maintain his persona. Excuse me," he stammered. "Ice cream mess." He crouched and scooped up napkins, extending them toward the girl who hesitated, uncertain whether the stranger or the scoffed-at staff could be trusted. The mother exchanged a glance with him, gratitude softening her distress lines. Francis, who'd been busy arranging pastries, noticed the commotion and joined quietly. Without a word, she lifted the remaining scoops of vanilla from the freezer, setting them into a fresh cone before handing it to the girl, whose eyes lit up with wonder. While Francis worked, Patricia appeared at the doorway, surveying the mess. She called softly to the barista, "Please bring another cup," on the house. Derek's jaw tightened, but no one heeded his scowl. Anna abandoned her phone and knelt to help scrub the floor, her earlier disdain replaced by a reluctant focus. Even Troy, rushing in to clock out for his break, paused to place a small towel under the counter to catch any further drips. Raj watched the transformation unfold, from mockery to compassion, from indifference to action. The cafe's true heart revealed itself, not in grand gestures, but in this small tableau. He returned to his corner as the mother and daughter left, cone in hand, the girl's laughter now trailing behind them. He logged the moment, the ice cream incident, a turning point in the cafe's hidden narrative, a perfect example of kindness overcoming cruelty in real time. The breakfast rush hit like a freight train. Orders blurred into one another as clattering dishes and steaming cups filled every counter space. Patrons lined up shoulder to shoulder, voices rising in impatience. In the midst of it all, Frances moved with serene focus, steam swirling around her as she crafted each latte art rosetta. When a frazzled new hire fumbled a pour, sending hot milk splattering onto the counter. Frances didn't scold. Instead, she pressed a fresh towel into the young barista's hand and guided her fingers over the pitcher's handle, whispering, "You've got this." A cafe regular, an elderly woman with a cane, shuffled in, breathing heavily. Troy, stationed at the register, glanced at his watch and turned away as if he had no time for the slow struggle. But Raj saw movement behind him. Derek, eyes averted, met Patricia's gaze for a fleeting second. Then Patricia slipped from her clipboard, knelt at the register's side, and rang up the woman's tea without charge. She folded the receipt small and tucked it into the woman's purse as she passed her the cup, offering a gentle smile. The woman's gratitude was soft but palpable. She mouthed, "Thank you," before limping toward a window seat. In the kitchen's back corner, Anna found herself neck-deep in dirty dishes as the dishwasher's station overflowed. Henry, the elderly dishwasher whose arthritis throbbed with every bend, had collapsed onto a stool. Anna paused mid-scrub, her fingertips brushing suds against a chipped plate. She set the dish aside, knelt in front of Henry, and offered him a glass of water. "Take a moment," she said, voice low. He nodded, eyes misting, and she took over his station, stacking plates with care until his breathing steadied. Couriers and delivery drivers weaved through, shouting shortages and broken boxes. Amid the murmurs of frustration, Raj spotted Megan slip into the storeroom and reappear with extra napkins, handing them to a driver whose load had shifted. Her hurried gesture was hidden in the chaos, but Raj caught the kindness in her eyes before she vanished back into the fray. As the crescendo of orders peaked, these small acts formed a balm, quiet compassion rippling through the chaos. Raj sipped his cold coffee, noting each one: Frances's guidance, Patricia's kindness, and his empathy, Megan's unseen support. They were the silent heroes, weaving humanity into every corner of this calf-face madness. He slipped into the staff break room just as the clock struck 3, finding the few off-duty employees gathered around a small table. Laughter erupted as Anna reenacted Raj's latest pronunciation fiasco, flapping her hands dramatically. Derek chimed in, adopting a caricatured accent. "Cafe mocha, yes?" His drawl so exaggerated it cut through the quiet room like a serrated knife. Megan doubled over, clutching her sides as Troy roared. Patricia, nursing a lukewarm tea, allowed a tight smile, but said nothing, her eyes darting between amusement and discomfort. Anna mimicked Raj's nervous posture, shoulders hunched, eyes darting. "He's so desperate," she sneered, punctuating the word with a pointed jab at Derek's ribs. Like a lost puppy, Derek pretended to whimper. "Can someone help me?" he begged in mock innocence, sending another wave of giggles through the room. Megan recounted an imaginary conversation where Raj begged for afternoon pastries. "Please, miss, can have one more biscotti," she chided, rolling her eyes. The group groaned theatrically at the poor immigrant's appetite, as if his desire for simple treats were laughable. Troy, taking the stage, decided to act out a customer complaint. He grabbed a paper towel and draped it over his head, speaking in a mock accent about receiving burnt water instead of coffee. His performance drew the loudest uproar, even prompting 2 delivery drivers lingering outside the door to peek in, curious about the commotion. Patricia cleared her throat finally. "Enough," she said softly, but her tone lacked conviction. Anna shrugged. "Lighten up, Pat. It's just for fun." The others agreed, but the murmur of dissent lingered. Patricia's tight jaw, the hesitant look in Troy's eyes when Meg's laugh got too loud. Raj retreated silently, the sharp sting of their mockery burning in his chest. The laughter echoed in his mind long after he reopened the door. He'd seen their cruelty unfiltered, a private performance designed to humiliate. But now he held a collection of these moments, each one recorded, each one a stepping stone toward accountability. Their mocking performance would be their undoing. Mid-morning light filtered through the windows when Henry suddenly doubled over at his station, clutching his side. A guttural groan tore from his lips as he sank against the stainless steel sink, steam swirling around him. His face contorted in pain, and he pressed trembling fingers to his chest as if trying to hold himself together. Frances was the first to notice. She dropped the tray she was carrying and rushed to his side, calling out his name. Troy and Megan froze mid-step, eyes wide, while Patricia dashed forward, phone in hand. "Somebody call an ambulance." Patricia shouted, her earlier hesitance replaced by genuine alarm. Derek abandoned his post at the register, heart hammering as he dialed 911. Raj slipped behind the counter, shedding his timid Raj persona in an instant. He knelt beside Henry, gently supporting his back. "It's okay," he murmured, voice calm and assured. He peeled back Henry's apron and felt for a pulse. It was rapid, erratic. No wonder the old man was in distress. Anna appeared with a bottle of water. She fumbled the cap in her haste, then pressed the nozzle to Henry's lips. He sipped weakly, nodding his thanks through gritted teeth. Patricia checked the address with the dispatcher, her voice steady as she provided details. Inside minutes that felt like eons, paramedics arrived, their stretcher gleaming in the bright sunlight. They moved with practiced efficiency, slipping a blood pressure cuff onto Henry's arm and inserting in 4-line. Raj stood back but stayed close enough to offer quiet encouragement. As the paramedics lifted Henry onto the stretcher, Frances leaned in, brushing a gentle hand across his shoulder. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. Henry managed a small, grateful smile before the doors swung open and he was carried away. Silence settled over the cafe's open floor, broken only by the distant wail of the ambulance sirens. Staff members exchanged stunned glances, faces drawn with guilt and concern. Raj found himself standing alone behind the counter, his heart aching for the man whose suffering he'd witnessed in secret for days. This sudden health scare cut through the casual cruelty he'd observed, exposing the human fragility at the heart of the cafe. It underscored the urgency of his mission, ensuring no one here would ever be overlooked or mocked again. Once Henry was safely in the ambulance, Raj's earpiece crackled. "Now." He straightened, removed his cap, and walked to the front with the ease of authority. Faces turned. Confusion rippled through the staff as Raj transformed before their eyes. "I am not Raj," he began, voice firm. "I'm Lucas Hayes, CEO of Brewtime Holdings. I've been undercover here." He paused, letting silence settle. The staff stared, mouths agape. Henry Lawson is more than an employee. He's the backbone of this cafe. His medical bills and living situation are unacceptable. Megan swallowed hard. Derek looked stricken. Lucas continued, "I've arranged for Henry to be flown to a specialist clinic. All expenses covered. When he's ready, he'll return here on full paid medical leave." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. Additionally, Lucas said, "We're establishing a fund to support any team member facing personal crises. No one should ever endure what Henry has." He placed a firm hand on Anna's shoulder. "Anna, you'll oversee the fund's distribution. Frances, I want you to mentor new staff. Your compassion sets the standard." He met Troy's guilty gaze. "And Troy, Megan, you'll assist in organizing community outreach events. You'll learn empathy firsthand by serving alongside those we help." Turning to the entire staff, Lucas's tone softened. "I entrusted this cafe to you to create community, kindness, and respect. I've seen what you're capable of, both the best and the worst." He unclipped his ID badge, revealing the Brewtime logo. "Consider this a reset. I expect every one of you to live our values." He retrieved a stack of flyers from his pocket. "These are for local shelters and food banks. Starting tomorrow, you'll spend one morning shift volunteering off-site. I'll be joining you." Whispered chatter rose, but it was respectful, tinged with relief. Lucas paused, giving him a final look. "I won't abandon this place, or any of you again. Together, we'll fix what's broken." He swept his gaze over the room, a silent promise lingering in the air. Then he stepped aside, letting the weight of his words sink in as the staff processed the heartfelt assistance from the real CEO. It started with spilled sugar packets. Anna found them strewn across the prep station one morning, each open packet dusting the counter in white flourishes. She sighed, blaming the messy delivery guy, until she noticed the tiny note taped to the bag. "Oops, klutz," in Derek's neat handwriting. The next day, Megan discovered her phone drenched in spilled espresso grounds when she reached into her pocket. Troy shrugged when she shoved it at him, pretending ignorance. "Must have fallen in while you were making my latte," he teased, voice laced with amusement. Megan glared, wiping the grit off her screen, but inside she bristled. These were no accidents. Raj watched from his corner table as a tray of clean glasses shattered on the floor just as Francis rounded the corner. A barely perceptible smirk passed across Derek's face before he plunged into frantic apologies. Francis knelt beside the shards, her calm broken by the sudden chaos. He noted the tremor in her hands as she swept up the pieces. That afternoon, Henry returned, still pale but determined, and found his apron soaked in bleach. Patricia's frantic apology rang false as she insisted someone must have mislabeled the cleaning supplies. Henry's shoulders sagged, confusion in his eyes. By the end of the week, the pranks grew darker. Anna arrived for her shift to find her locker locked from the outside and a mocking note wedged in the crack. "Lost your key again?" She spent 20 minutes fetching a manager to let her in, late for her first customer. Then came the cold coffee incident. Troy served Raj a cup of ice-cold brew and laughed when he recoiled. "Welcome back, pal," he said. "Thought you might like a challenge." The laughter that followed cut sharper than any blade. Raj felt the air thicken with hostility. These weren't harmless jests. They were targeted attacks meant to intimidate and humiliate. He leaned back, pulling out his notebook to catalog each escalation. The clips from the hidden cameras would show every deliberate gesture, every cruel grin. And when the time came, each prank would expose the ugly underbelly of their cruelty. No one here would escape accountability. Lucas spent the weekend reviewing every frame of footage he captured. In the quiet of his temporary office, a back room outfitted with monitors and his laptop, he traced patterns of behavior. He mapped the pranks to their perpetrators. Sugar for Anna's workspace, espresso for Megan's pocket, bleach for Henry's apron. Each file was stamped with metadata, dates, times, even the exact angle of the hidden camera. He cross-referenced employee schedules, noting who was on shift during each incident. Derek consistently clocked in early, lingering near the bleach storage. Troy's break times coincided with a locked locker prank. Even Patricia's panicked apologies didn't align with her recorded locations. Lucas flagged each discrepancy in red. Beyond video, he conducted discreet interviews. Posing as his own consultant, he asked Carlos about any strange occurrences. The busboy, eager to please, revealed overheard whispers of teaching him a lesson without naming names. He spoke of Megan's sudden request for extra cleaning supplies and Anna's mysterious after-hours trips to the supply closet. Lucas recorded every word, his notepad filling with insights. He also reached out to regular customers via an anonymous survey. Many praised Francis's calm demeanor. A few mentioned Anna's rare but sincere smiles when no one was watching. One elderly patron wrote of Patricia's kindness during his solo lunches. These testimonials formed a broader picture. Most staff upheld the cafe's values, while a few orchestrated the cruelty. With evidence mounting, Lucas prepared a dossier for the coming meeting. He drafted a timeline of pranks alongside the video stills, each annotated with observations. The measured tilt of a sugar packet, the calculated sprinkle of grounds. He created profiles detailing motives, Derek's resentment of change, Troy's sense of superiority, Megan's insecurity masked as aggression. As night fell, he shut off the monitors and leaned back, reviewing his outline for the staff meeting. The dossier would leave no shadow of doubt and would lead directly to accountability measures. He programmed the earpiece for a final signal. Tomorrow at opening, everyone would see what he'd uncovered. Before leaving, Lucas took one last look at the cafe's floor plan pinned on the wall, envisioning the moment when the hidden weaknesses of his culture would be exposed. His private investigation had laid the groundwork. Now, justice would take center stage. He gathered the staff in the cafe just before opening, the morning sun slanting through the windows. On the counter lay a neat stack of printouts, timestamps, still frames from the hidden cameras, and copies of survey testimonials. When heads turned, Lucas, still in his Raj guise except for his CEO badge, cleared his throat. He began by laying out the printed timeline. Last Tuesday at 2:14 p.m., Derek pocketed $15 after voiding a sale. Footage showed the smirk as he slipped the bills into his jeans. Next, he pointed to a series of images from Wednesday morning. Anna arranging bleach label bottles near Henry's station. Her expression registered both guilt and triumph. He passed around the screenshots, each one capturing a mocking glance or deliberate sabotage. He then displayed the locker incident. Grainy video of Troy sealing Anna's locker door from the outside, his gloved hand pausing to tape a taunting note in view of the camera. The staff gasped as the note was read aloud. "Lost your key again?" Lucas's finger rested on the timestamp. 6:08 a.m. Thursday, he said quietly. Megan's name appeared next. Footage from Friday showed her shaking espresso grounds into her coworker's pockets, captured from an overhead angle. She looked up, startled by the camera's invisible eye, before pretending to search her own bag in feigned confusion. Lucas interspersed customer testimonials, a handwritten note praising Francis's kindness, another praising Patricia's aid. Then he asked for volunteer statements from the staff. Carlos and another busboy offered accounts of overheard whispers. Frame him Monday. They'd heard Derek mutter about Henry. The room fell silent, the weight of evidence tangible in the hush. Lucas stepped back, letting the documents speak for themselves. He watched as faces drained of color. Patricia's tremor as she realized the gaps in her own apologies, Derek's tightened jaw and his lowered eyes, Troy's rigid posture, Megan's quivering lips. No one spoke. Lucas allowed the silence to press in until it felt unbearable. Then he gathered the papers, stacking them with care. "This is what happens when we betray our values," he said softly. "But it's not too late to make it right." He looked each of them in the eye, signaling that the moment of reckoning had arrived, and that justice would follow. As the weight of the evidence settled over the group, a soft voice cut through the tension. Frances stepped forward, her hands still damp from the morning's latte art session. "I have something to say," she began, voice steady despite the hush. Everyone turned to her, surprised to see the normally reserved barista stand so resolute. "I've watched what happened," she continued, glancing at the printouts. "And I can't stay silent." She held up a latte cup marked with Henry's favorite rosetta, the one she'd made each morning for him. "This isn't just about pranks. It's about the dignity of our team. When I saw Henry fall ill, I realized how little we saw the people behind the counter." Lucas nodded encouragingly as Frances took a breath. "I want to help make things right." She stepped toward Anna, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We all make mistakes, but kindness can heal them. I'm willing to lead the first volunteer shift at the shelter with you, Anna, if you'll join me." Her offer hung in the air, an olive branch extended. Carlos, the busboy, moved beside Frances. "And I'll help," he said. "I've seen how good people can be. We should stand together." Maya, a kitchen assistant who usually stayed in the background, spoke up next. "Me too. If we start here, maybe we can rebuild." One by one, other staff members, some still pallid from guilt, others emboldened by Frances's courage, stepped forward, pledging small acts of service. Anna looked uncertain, her defenses wavering in the face of Frances's sincerity. Derek lowered his eyes, the CEO's dossier clutched in his hand. Even Troy seemed to soften, his posture less rigid. Lucas watched, heartened by the shift. The unexpected ally had broken the ice, turning a moment of accusation into a chance for unity. Lucas addressed the group. "This is the spirit I envision for this cafe. It starts with acknowledging wrongs and choosing to do better." He gestured toward Frances. "Thank you for your leadership." The staff exchanged tentative smiles, relief mingling with resolve. In that moment, a fractured team found common ground. An unexpected ally had emerged, and with her the seeds of true change took root amidst the cafe's recovering atmosphere. Raj followed Lucas through the narrow door leading to the back room, where the fluorescent light flickered over stacked inventory boxes. Troy lingered by the supply shelves, shifting uneasily as Lucas closed the door behind them. The air was thick with tension. Lucas laid the dossier on a crate and motioned for Troy to step forward. "We need to talk about your involvement," he said quietly. Troy's eyes darted to the floor, jaw clenched. I didn't mean for it to go that far," he stammered. "It was just a joke." A hidden camera still hovered on the screen in Lucas's hand, Troy's gloved hand slipping the tape over Anna's locker. "It's never just a joke when it hurts someone's livelihood," Lucas replied. He paused, watching Troy swallow hard. "You orchestrated this to advance your cousin's job prospects at Henry's expense. You betrayed your team." Troy's shoulders sagged. I was scared they'd replace me," he admitted. "Business wasn't great, and I thought if Henry was gone, my position would be safe." His voice cracked. "I didn't think about how much he means to people." Lucas folded his arms. "Fear doesn't justify cruelty." He stepped closer. "You owe Henry an apology. In front of everyone." Troy's eyes flicked toward the door, imagining the crowd outside. "Yes," he whispered, deflated. Lucas turned to Megan, who hovered in the doorway, arms folded. He held up the locker and espresso ground photos. "You helped frame him, too." Megan's face turned pale. She glanced at Troy, remorse softening her features. I'm sorry," she said, voice small. "I never wanted to hurt him." Lucas nodded. "Good. Now, we need to make amends." He handed Megan a clean apron. "You'll restock the supplies you sabotaged and cover Anna's shift next week to help rebuild trust." To Troy, he said, "You'll join Henry's volunteer shift at the shelter. You'll see the value of compassion firsthand." Troy nodded, swallowing. "I understand." Lucas gathered the dossier and headed for the door. Before opening it, he turned back. "Change starts now. No more hiding in shadows." He cracked the door open. In the hallway, Anna and Francis waited, eyes steady. Troy and Megan stepped out with tentative resolve. Lucas followed, closing the back room behind him. The confrontation had forced accountability, and now the real work of restoration could begin. The next morning, Raj watched from his usual corner as Henry returned to his station, greeted by tentative smiles. Across the room, Derek and Anna exchanged disciplined nods, their earlier animosity replaced by cautious courtesy. Lucas had set the tone. Any further cruelty would no longer be tolerated. A group of local high schoolers arrived, giggling and jostling for selfies with Francis, who now led an afternoon art and coffee workshop. The teens scattered politely when instructed, but Anna stepped forward, offering polite guidance on latte art. When one of the girls spilled whipped cream down her sleeve, Anna didn't sigh. She gently guided her to the sink and helped rinse the mess, earning grateful laughter. At the register, Megan manned the till with newfound attentiveness, patiently explaining loyalty card benefits to an elderly patron who had struggled last week. As she finished, the woman winked and pressed a "thank you" token into Megan's hand. Megan's surprised smile was genuine, free of mockery. Troy carried trays to a corner table filled with food destined for the local shelter. Henry, flanked by Lucas, directed the volunteers with quiet authority. These were the same shelves Troy once used for sabotage. When Troy tripped, scattering sandwiches across the floor, Henry knelt beside him. Troy braced for ridicule, but Henry simply helped him pick up the bread, patting his shoulder. "It's all part of learning," Henry said, voice warm. Troy's eyes glistened. He offered a shaky thank you. Behind the counter, Derek joined Carlos in organizing sugar packets into neat rows. A regular complained about a missing stir stick. Derek reached under the register and handed her a handful with a friendly laugh. The customer's surprise melted into delight as she tipped him $1. Derek pocketed it, and then pulled out a small jar labeled charity, adding the bill inside. Lucas observed the transformation with approval. He caught Anna's eye and gave a subtle nod. She responded with a small, confident smile, no longer the mocking caricature of yesterday. With each act of kindness, the balance shifted. The bullies, now confronted by their own misdeeds, we're learning empathy. The cafe's energy hummed with genuine connection rather than derision. Raj sipped his coffee, satisfaction warming him as he noted. Turning tables wasn't just about swapping seats. It was about rewriting hearts. The midday crowd hushed as Lucas stepped onto the small platform by the counter, the dossier tucked under his arm. He tapped the microphone, clearing his throat. "Thank you all for gathering," he began, scanning the faces of staff and customers alike. "I called this meeting to address recent events that shook our cafe." He paused, letting the murmurs fade. He motioned to Anna first. "Anna, would you join me?" Reluctantly, she approached, shoulders squared now with genuine resolve. Lucas turned to the assembled staff. "Some of us forgot what this place stands for. Anna, I invite you to apologize for your part in undermining our community." Anna's voice trembled at first. "I'm sorry for mocking our teammate and for letting fear guide my actions instead of kindness." She looked up, meeting Henry's eyes. "I promise to do better." Next, Lucas called Megan forward. Her lips quivered as she stepped up. "I apologize for my sabotage and cruelty," she said, voice steadying. "I forgot that respect and empathy are far more important than fitting in." She bowed her head, then raised it to acknowledge the group's nods of acceptance. Troy was last. He squared his shoulders, eyes brimming. "I was selfish and cruel," he admitted. "I thought I had to protect my job, but I hurt someone who only wanted to help." His apology was raw, stripped of pretense. The cafe fell silent before a single clap broke out, then another, until the entire room applauded. Lucas lifted his hand for calm. "Your courage to admit wrongdoing is the first step toward rebuilding trust." He turned to Henry, who stood apart, dignified and quiet. "Henry, would you join us?" Henry approached, supported by Francis. Lucas handed him the microphone. "On behalf of everyone here, I'm deeply sorry for the harm you endured," he said, voice rich with sincerity. "Your compassion has been our greatest lesson." Henry's voice was soft but clear. "Thank you for seeing truth and for giving me a chance to stay." The crowd cheered, relief and support radiating through the room. Lucas stepped back, allowing the staff to embrace one another. The public apology had unfolded not as a ceremony, but as a genuine reckoning and a powerful renewal of the cafe's promise to stand together. Lucas returned to the microphone, the hum of applause fading into expectant quiet. "Thank you," he said, voice resonant. "Today has shown me both the flaws and the strengths in our cafe family. It's time to align our policies with our values." He paused, unfolding a crisp document. He continued, "First, we're implementing a zero-tolerance harassment policy. Any act of intentional humiliation, verbal or practical, will lead to immediate review and, if substantiated, disciplinary action." A ripple passed through the staff. Troy nodded. Anna looked relieved. "Second," Lucas said, "we're formalizing our employee support fund. Anyone facing personal hardship, medical bills, housing insecurity, or family emergencies can apply for assistance without fear of judgment." He looked to Henry, who offered a small, grateful smile. "Third, we're establishing a mentorship program. Senior team members like Francis and Patricia will be paired with newer hires for ongoing guidance, ensuring kindness and competence grow hand in hand." He gestured to Francis, who gave an encouraging nod. "Fourth," Lucas added, "we'll conduct quarterly culture audits. I will personally review anonymous feedback, video insights, and customer surveys to identify areas for improvement. This cafe belongs to all of us, and transparency will keep us honest." He scanned the room, meeting attentive eyes. "Finally, starting next month, we're launching community service days. Once a quarter, the entire cafe team will volunteer together at shelters, food banks, or local schools. We'll wear our uniforms with pride, serving both coffee and compassion beyond these walls." Lucas released the document onto the counter. "These aren't just words on paper. I'll hold each of you, and myself, accountable to them." He stepped down, allowing Carlos to place the document in the staff folder where everyone could access it. The staff murmured approval. Even Derek cracked a genuine smile. Henry stepped forward, lifting a coffee cup. To new beginnings, he said softly. Others echoed the toast, raising their cups. The cafe felt charged with purpose, its future reshaped by collective commitment. As Lucas watched his team pore over the policy details, he knew these changes would sustain the culture of respect and kindness he'd envisioned. No longer hidden behind an undercover guise, but boldly declared for all to see. Thought for a couple of seconds. Fairy lights twinkled above the counter as tables were pushed together to form a long feast line. Patrons and staff mingled, laughter rising above the clink of mugs and plates heaped with homemade pastries. Henry stood at the head of the table, cheeks flushed with surprise as Francis presented him a bouquet of wildflowers collected from the nearby park. He offered a shy nod and accepted them, his eyes bright with gratitude. Lucas moved through the crowd, greeting guests by name, regulars who had returned to show their support and newcomers drawn by the cafe's kindness campaign. Anna circulated with a platter of freshly baked cookies, stopping at each spot to offer one with a genuine smile. Megan refilled coffee cups behind the counter, working alongside Patricia, whose gentle encouragement kept their teamwork smooth and warm. At one end of the table, Carlos and the kitchen staff had prepared a special unity stew, each ingredient contributed by a different team member. Patrons dipped crusty bread into its rich broth, remarking on the unique flavor blend. A small sign read, "A taste of collaboration," and people nodded appreciatively, recognizing the metaphor. Lucas raised his cup, drawing everyone's attention. "Tonight, we celebrate more than our cafe," he began, voice steady with emotion. "We celebrate compassion, respect, and the true spirit of community that defines us." He gestured toward the staff, with Henry at the center. These individuals reminded us that a single act of kindness can transform lives. The room filled with applause. Henry stood a little taller as he joined the toast, raising his cup of steaming chai. "To true humanity," he said simply, "and to all who embody it." Voices echoed his sentiment. "To humanity and to kindness," until the cafe rang with collective hope. Music drifted from a small speaker, soft guitar chords, and people began to dance between tables. Even Troy and Derek shared an improvised two-step, their earlier grudges forgotten in the warm glow of shared celebration. In that moment, every corner of the cafe was alive with purpose, united by the simple truth that empathy, once rediscovered, lights the way forward. Late that afternoon, Lucas called the team together behind the counter, the soft hum of evening service beginning. He placed 4 small velvet boxes on the countertop, each embossed with the Brewtime logo. "You've all gone above and beyond," he said, eyes resting first on Francis. "Your daily kindness inspired change." He handed her the first box. Inside lay a custom silver pin shaped like a latte heart, to wear on her apron as a symbol of her mentorship. Next, he offered Carlos a gift card that covered the next year's rent for a shared apartment, surprising the young busboy into a broad grin. "Your willingness to share observations helped us uncover the truth," Lucas explained. Carlos's eyes glistened as he accepted it. Patricia received the third box, 2 tickets to a management retreat in the mountains, complete with leadership workshops and time for reflection. "You kept our operations steady when turmoil struck," Lucas said. Patricia reached for the tickets, her hands trembling with gratitude. Finally, Lucas turned to Anna, Megan, and Troy, who clustered together with nervous curiosity. "You each will receive sponsored enrollment in Brewtime University's Empathy and Leadership program," he announced. "Your participation in the volunteer shifts showed your dedication to growth." He handed them each a certificate. Their surprised expressions melted into relief and pride. Henry, watching from his station, wiped his eyes with a dish towel. Lucas approached him and placed the final box in Henry's hands, a key to the small house 3 blocks away, now officially his, and a check to set up the community fund in his name. "You've earned every bit of this, Henry," Lucas said softly. Henry's voice caught as he whispered, "Thank you for everything." The team gathered around, offering hugs and high fives. Megan slipped an arm around Troy, whispering, "We did it." Anna leaned against Francis, beaming. Lucas looked on, heart full, as the cafe filled with warmth and respect. These gifts were more than tokens. They were tangible recognition of the unsung heroes whose quiet deeds had reshaped an entire culture. And in that moment, every recipient knew their value had been seen and celebrated. Years later, the cafe still thrived under the ethos born from those tumultuous weeks. New hires learned not just recipes, but the story of Henry's resilience, Francis's mentorship, and the moment the CEO shed his disguise to right the wrongs. A framed photograph hung above the pastry case. The staff huddled around Lucas and Henry during the celebration, smiles radiant. The Employee Support Fund had grown, thanks to regular contributions and community partnerships. Anna often shared how her early mistakes taught her the power of apology, mentoring newer baristas on humility and listening. Megan and Troy co-led monthly outreach events, their laughter now genuine as they served meals to local shelters, forging bonds that extended beyond work. Carlos's journey led him to management, his keen observations and steadfast integrity guiding him as he oversaw operations at a second location. His apartment key still hung on his locker, a daily reminder of how kindness can reshape lives. Patricia returned from her retreat with fresh ideas, implementing flexible schedules and wellness days that kept morale high and turnover low. Francis curated a kindness wall where customers and staff could post notes of gratitude. On any given day, it overflowed with thank yous. A student grateful for a late-night study cup, a mother remembering a free latte on her hardest day, a visitor touched by a simple conversation. Henry's name appeared often, alongside others who carried forward his legacy. Lucas visited frequently, no longer in disguise, but as a hands-on leader. He'd pause by the kindness wall, reading new notes, sometimes adding one himself about a particularly thoughtful gesture he'd witnessed. He continued quarterly audits, but now they were celebrations of best practices rather than exposés of failure. The cafe's reputation spread, drawing customers who sought more than coffee. They wanted to be part of something meaningful. Local news outlets featured stories of the cafe's unique culture, inspiring other businesses to adopt similar values. Yet amidst the recognition, the team remained grounded, remembering that compassion wasn't a policy, it was a way of life. And every morning, as Henry arrived to open the doors, he'd pause under the photograph of that fateful celebration, smile to himself, and step inside. His presence, steady and kind, reminded everyone that true leadership often begins with the simplest acts of humanity. Lucas stood behind the counter one last time, the morning rush a familiar blur of orders and greetings. He removed his CEO badge and set it gently on the polished wood. The staff gathered, their faces lit by both respect and something bittersweet. He cleared his throat, voice steady. "I came here as Raj, seeking truth. I'm leaving as Lucas, proud of what we've built together." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "When I first donned this disguise, I never imagined the depth of compassion I would witness. You taught me that leadership isn't about titles or profits. It's about lifting each other up." Francis stepped forward, offering him a fresh pot of coffee on a silver tray. He accepted it, inhaling the rich aroma, then took a measured sip. "This place will always be my home," he continued. "But it's time for me to pass the torch fully to you." He looked at Anna, Megan, Troy, and Carlos. "Carry on the legacy, listen, learn, and lead with kindness." He addressed Henry last, whose steady gaze met his. "Henry, you are the heart of this cafe. Thank you for showing us what true humanity looks like." Henry nodded, emotion softening his eyes. Lucas reached into his pocket and produced a small envelope. Inside is a note. "My final instruction: empower someone new every week. Recognize their efforts, share your story, and remind them that their voice matters." He handed the envelope to Patricia, who accepted it with reverence. Stepping away from the counter, Lucas raised his cup in a quiet salute. The team echoed the gesture, glasses and mugs lifted in unison. As he walked toward the door, he turned once more. "This isn't goodbye," he said. "It's a promise that compassion endures." He opened the door to a chorus of applause, the bell chiming warmly. Outside, he paused, inhaled the crisp air, and smiled. The cafe behind him buzzed with life and purpose, proof that a single voice, spoken in truth, can set countless hearts free.